not distracted. That's why I wrote it. This is one of the things that you should be doing as a teacher. You should be writing whatever you have to pass on your information to the kids. You should write it very clearly and very explicitly. Now, I have divided this. I'll divide this whiteboard into two. On one side, I have reflected this point, and on another side, I'll introduce to you my topic, second topic. That's micro teaching. That is micro teaching. What exactly micro teaching means, and what we should be doing as micro teaching. In micro teaching, micro teaching is a very recent concept. Of all the methods that we've been talking about earlier, I said that there are multiple methods of teaching. One of the methods which has become very popular in modern times, and which is a very recent method, that's called micro teaching. And as the name suggests, this micro means something very small. So this is a small group teaching. This is small group teaching. This is it's also called a small group target teaching. That you teach a small group. You make a very small group of children. So this is a kind of a descaling. You descale the size, descaling the size of teaching, descaling the size of the text, descaling the size of your classroom, descaling the size of your classroom. Why is it important that you should descale the size of classrooms, or you should descale the size of your text? Because you set certain targets in it. You set certain objectives in it. And once you set those certain objectives, you want to realize those objectives, and you could realize those objectives only and only when you have a small group. You have a small group. Many a times it happens that in our classroom there are 50 odd students, there are 60 students, and more than that 60 students, and you're not able to provide them that much of the attention and focus. And you're not able to provide them that much of attention and focus. And then in that case, it would be more advisable, it would be more useful if you will bring down the size of your children. Because it will give you an opportunity, provide you an opportunity that you will engage with them in a better way. And for that, micro teaching is a concept which is basically a teaching training concept. And it is related to the training of teachers. Training of teachers. So it's about training of teachers. It's about training of teachers. Teaching trainers. Training. Teaching them the methods that they should use in order to get some object, or in order to get some in order to achieve their target. And what we exactly do in micro teaching, as I said, we reduce the size of the text, we reduce the size of the classroom, we reduce the size of the classroom. So basically, when we are talking about micro teaching, earlier I said it's a kind of a peer learning also. It's a kind of a peer learning. What does peer learning basically mean? That you learn from your fellow beings.
Yes, sir.
Suppose you are 8 of the teachers here in this class. What micro teaching you will do in micro teaching, you will take a portion of the text that you're supposed to teach. Suppose what do you teach? Science. You teach science. Suppose she has to teach photosynthesis to the students. And now from the photosynthesis she takes one of the components, that's the leaf. She takes one of the components, that's the leaf. And she is demonstrating about the leaf. And she gives a very demonstrative kind of a lecture, or she can give a kind of a discussion, a kind of a talk, a kind of a model presentation of a leaf, and it has segments and other things. And she will record her, her speech, or she will record her observations. She will record her, or she will ask you to just watch me. I'll be delivering your lecture, and she will get a feedback. She will get a feedback. That's very important. She will get a feedback from you, so that she will find, and in that way she will be able to identify the areas of her strength as well as of her weakness. Because it's important for a teacher to identify the areas of strength as well as weakness. So in a micro teaching, when we teach our trainees, most of the times they are the pupil teachers, we can call them. And when we teach them micro teaching, in micro teaching we'll be focusing upon the small group size. Probably you can fix it up to the limit of 20, depending upon the size you have, or you can take as many as 5 to 10 students. You can take as many as 5 to students. So normally if your class is of a duration of 40-minute class, or if it is of a duration of 1 hour class, you can minimize it to 20-minute class. And within this 20-minute class, you will be delivering a lecture. You will be asking the peers just to observe me. So the micro teaching you will not do with the kids. You will do it with your peers. You will do with your. So this should be in your mind first. Let me make it clear. While you are doing micro teaching, the practice of mind, you have to practice it on kids. No doubt. There's no doubt in that. But micro teaching training session you will conduct. How can you conduct it? You have got modern gadgets also.
Yes, sir.
You can record your observations also. If there's a CCTV footage also, you can just watch your CCTV footage, and later on when you will watch, you will see the levels that you have, the skills that you have, and if there's any weakness in any of those skills, skills of teaching, you will concentrate on that level of in order to improve it. उसको improve करने के लिए, ठीक है ना? तो same you will do with the kids then. You will apply this procedure with the kids. You will take them into small size groups, and you will see their strengths. You will see their weaknesses. You will explore their different skills. You will explore the different skills. What are those different skills? As I said, as I earlier mentioned to you, that there are the different types of skills that the teacher has to find once he gets inside the classroom. I told you that the student, you should not take a kid or a student in isolation. He's a product of the society. He's a product of an environment. And being a product of an environment, he comes with an experience, and his experience is very important. His perception about the world is important. Knowing that, recording that as an observer, as a facilitator, as a guide, is of utmost importance to you, of utmost importance to you as teachers. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Suppose you take this small portion, and you have focused on one of the faculties or one of the skills. Suppose communication skill. You want to develop communication skill. When we are talking about skills, where one of the important skills that's called communication skills. Power of communicating your ideas. How much powerful you would be as a teacher. How much knowledge you might be having as a teacher. That knowledge is of no use unless and until you are not developing your communication skills. Communication skills is very important aspect. And you will find some of the successful teachers primarily because they had good communication skills. And this communication skill, for developing a communication skill, you need to develop their languages first of all. Understand?
Yes.
Understandably, you need to develop their language first of all. And this, because the language is a medium of communication. It's a medium of communication. How do we communicate? We don't communicate by different signals which we find in other animals and others.
Yes.
We don't communicate by those hormones. We don't secrete those hormones which will help us in identifying that I am communicating this idea to you, that like bees do it, like other animals do it. But we have been provided with this tongue, which is one of the organs, which is very flexible organ, going up and down just now. Also in my case also, and helping us to communicate and pass on with a language which is a very broad language and a broader language in front of you. There should be no bar.
Yes,
you should be communicating in language in which you are more competent. You are more comfortable.
Yes.
But the point is not to make it an issue that whether which language should I use. But the main point is that you should be communicating your idea in a better way.
Yes.
So once you are targeting communication, you are talking
Communication.
You can develop a small lesson. The first thing in micro teaching is that you plan your lesson.
Yes.
So lesson plan, that's why you were taught in the beard.
Yes.
The lesson plan. It's a very important thing to plan your lesson. You go back home, you have planned your lesson today, and your lesson you are believing that I will try to develop a certain skill in my kids, those whom I am going to teach. And how will I do it? You will first undergo this training of micro teaching, in which you have recorded your observations, and you will ask other people just to observe me and observe some of the qualities that I ought to have. I ought to have the skill of, first I said, in this communication, I should be very much communicative. I should be and communication में जो चीजें फिर आएंगी उसमें the clarity of my voice, clarity of the words, clarity of my pronunciation, how I use the words, my expressions also at the same time. So many things come in communication, and I should not create a kind of a barrier between the learner and whom I am teaching. Neither semantic barrier nor any other kind of nor any psychological kind of a barrier. Earlier I said that you have gone into the class and you have now jettisoned that notion. You have discarded that notion that I am the most important person, but I am like the kids, I am like them. Once you get with that preconceived, you have now modified your pedagogy. Once you have modified your pedagogy, you will prepare your plan. You will prepare your lesson plan. आप अपनी prepare करेंगे lesson plan. So you have to you are identifying one skill. आपने कोई एक identify की है एक skill. Like the skill of मैंने कहा communication skill. Like another very important thing which you will find, that's probing questions, asking questions. This is a skill, and you should encourage the skill.
Yes,
in the kids, that you should ask them that they should ask you questions.
Yes, sir.
They should ask you different types of questions. Kind of questions they will ask. You should be so much accommodative and incorporated act. Teaching has to be an incorporated act. Teaching क्या कहते हैं? Teaching should be an incorporated act. It should incorporate all those things. So once you get inside the class, you should have those questions in the mind which you want, which your kids want to ask you. You should encourage them.
Yes, sir.
This is a skill. This is a
Skill.
Do you instill that skill in your kids? That's the point you need to see in micro teaching. Pedagogy you have now. I already told you pedagogy you are now modified. You are ready for taking anything now, as under this new, broader vision of pedagogy. Your pedagogy is now redefined. It's not limited to traditional way of teaching learning. It's explored some other ways of teaching learning. Once it's explored it, do you prepare your lesson? Do you go back home and you prepare your lesson? For a while you might be thinking, oh, I have to teach kids this ABC. How should I prepare my lesson? ये ABC मुझे पढ़ाना है बच्चों को, इसमें मैं क्या prepare करूँ?
Yes, sir.
They might be thinking that probably those who teach at colleges and universities, they might be preparing their lectures. I might not need to prepare this. No, you have to prepare it from a psychological point of view, from a point of view of the kid. For a while you have to be that normally the problems that a kid might be facing. All of a sudden he might say, I'm not interested in this ABC, I'm interested in something different. Have you prepared your lesson for that, in that sense? And if you are prepared in that sense, you have to prepare their different skills. You have to keep those skills in the mind. Skills in those
Mind.
So I said that communicative skill, one of the skills you can be looking for. Second is asking these questions. And third is making a very critical judgment. You should promote this critical thinking. Critical judgment, that's very important. Critical thinking. As a teacher, when you will learn to look at things critically. As teachers, first you must be having this quality. As teachers, you must be asking probing questions. You'll be looking for questions. You're taking a lesson from somewhere. You have learned this lesson. Now you are asking questions. You are asking
Questions.
You are asking questions. A good way would be you are asking certain questions once you enter into the class. You ask certain questions to the kids. आप उनसे सवालात करते हैं पहले. Like you can ask them if you are teaching them photosynthesis. That the food that you eat, how is it consumed?
Yes, sir.
आपके पास कौन सा छोटे questions they can find answer to, easy answers.
Yes,
And they might also find, and do you think that plants also eat food? Do you for a while they were critically looking at it. I have not seen any plant or any tree doing it, but at least it will instill in them this the spirit of asking these questions. So once they start raising these questions, you should be concentrating on it. So in a group of the teachers, in a group of the students, when you are targeting a small size of students, you have more scope, more space to give your attention, pay your attention to them. That's why micro-teaching is important. So for a while, if you have taught the whole class, it would be better that you divide your whole class sometimes for 5 minutes, because your class is of 30 minutes only, if I believe. So you advisable would be for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes. If you have a group of 30 students, let me teach at the group of 10 students, or let me teach the group of 5 students. Some skill I want to develop in them today. I'll target some skill based on some lesson. Like as a student of science, you will target in them that I want to develop in them the skill of observation. Skill of observation. You will bring a leaf and you will ask the kids, what things you notice in this leaf? Please tell me. And their experiences will not be the same. Their answers, responses will not be the same. And then you can ask them, what kind of things you would compare this leaf to? इसको आप किस चीज के साथ compare करेंगे? ठीक है ना? In the similar way, like the student of mathematics.
Yes.
Mathematics deals with some sort of that cognitive thinking. Mathematics is the highest of the arts and highest of the sciences.
Science.
Understand?
Yes.
So this mathematical thinking, this is just watch the kids playing with the things, fiddling with numbers, and in that way they can be helped to think about a thing, because the way we have been taught mathematics, the way mathematics is being taught in our schools, in our colleges, or wherever we go, if you will see, it's in the same manner as we teach other subjects. But the better way would have been that if certain critical questions are raised, if certain critical questions in the minds. Now, since you are dealing with the kids at a small level, simply for you, critical thinking is, how will you develop critical thinking? You will develop critical thinking, you will provide them to situations which they can understand,
Yes.
which they can comprehend. Situations like you ask them about their families, you ask them about their families, and you ask them, evaluate your family members one by one. Who is good, who is bad, why is he good, why is he bad? And in that way you will get a sense that how the child basically thinks, how he looks at the world, how he approaches to his family, what he thinks are the things which are important for being good, or what he thinks are the things that he wants to avoid. Understand?
Yes.
So this critical thinking is very important. And as the students of science, this critical thinking is important. As a student of social science, this critical. Teacher ought to be a critical thinker himself. He will be critically evaluating. Like we have been taught from days and days, immemorial times, that democracy is the best form of the government. And understand. So you can probably think about it, and you can ask probing questions. Democracy is the best form of the government. What about the corruption in the democracy? Who are basically ruling us? Let me examine who are the people who are ruling us. What are the alternatives available to democracy? What are the merits of those alternatives? What are the demerits of those? You will start analyzing these things. Once you start analyzing these things, this will develop your critical thinking. So when you are doing micro-teaching will help identifying teachers' skills basically. Understand?
Yes.
Then you will try to find those skills in the children also.
Yes.
But primarily it is meant for the teachers. It's meant for the teachers to develop their skills. And what skills they need to develop? I am giving you certain skills. So this is creative thinking. Then another very important aspect. Marikana, once you have planned your lesson,
Yes.
you should always be planning your lesson. First it starts with the planning of the lesson.
Yes, sir.
And how can you plan a lesson? You can take a lesson, you can plan it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you will start thinking about the various things, various targets that I should be getting while I am teaching this lesson. Because all the lessons do not have the same scope.
Yes, sir.
Different lessons are different scopes.
Scopes.
Different skills are involved. Numerical skills are involved. Sometimes aptitudes are to be tested. Sometimes logic is to be seen in certain things. Like you give different shapes, exams,
Yes, sir.
different figures. You make a small difference. Like small kids को आप दे सकते हैं. Like this. You can ask them, आपने 3 पीछे से ये कोई ये तस्वीरें देखी, and one of the pictures you will make to similar to it,
Yes.
and you will ask them which of these pictures is similar,
Similar.
and they will start thinking about it. This is how you will develop the mathematical thinking in them. They will start developing. Which number is same? You will write 2. You will write S. You will write like this, another,
Yes.
and you will ask them just by the help of this, by the help of visualization. You will ask them which is similar to this one. They will start thinking about it. This is how we will develop cognitive thinking in them. This is how we will develop the critical thinking in them. Understand? Now, you will write, in a similar way, you write a word like this, mother. You write a word father. You write a word brother. Then you write a word sister. And you will ask them, what is the difference between the 3? Why do you find the difference? They will start thinking about it. That mother, father, brother, and sister. These belong to a family. Then you write something like a different word. Like you write uncle. You write uncle. Now, your aunt, you write something like this. You write aunt or uncle or something. and you will help them in understanding that these belong to one family. And though he does belong to the larger family tree, but he does not belong to the same family. Understand?
Yes.
In that way, you will help them analyze, in the thinking of analyzing, in the thinking of logic, in the thinking of logic. Like you always used to teach kids those story, slow and steady wins the race. But and you always started with their mind with the belief that rabbit and tortoise started a race.
Yes.
When they started a race for a while, this came to the mind of rabbit that tortoise is long way lagging behind and he can't reach to me. And for a while, let me have the sleep. Have the sleep. And he slept, and tortoise was crawling and steadily moving, and he crossed the path where the rabbit was sleeping, and he found rabbit there. That okay, rabbit is sleeping. I must go on. I should not sleep. And